What is the Christian idea of heaven and hell? Is it horrendous? Is it repulsive? Is it fair? Almost all criticisms of Christian conception of justice, from atheistic perspectives, are rooted in non-acknowledgement of Christian theology the way it is. It is very easy to dismiss a system of justice and thought as evil, from a safe vantage point of skepticism and moral superiority, because that does not require one to put his own system of morality and justice that can be compared. It is rather like criticizing an extemporary speech, comfortably sitting in audience. It is not that the speech may not deserve criticism, it may as well, but is there a practical limitation that the person in the audience is unaware of, and will be until he comes and gives the speech himself, then realizing that there is more than what meets the eye or ears. Christianity has a binary system of justice, at least as what is gathered from its scriptures. By a cursory glance, almost all the objections thus, which are raised to show how God is an unjust judge, forget this crucial aspect and behave as if the courts in heaven follow a much more similar system as the Western justice system. This is nothing more than judging something by using values of something else, which makes no sense as it ignores the basic underlying fundamentals as to why that something is like that something. A proper analogy is drawn by picking up principles or justifying them, and a way to show that drawn analogy is false is to point out the distinction between the objects deemed analogous, which undercuts the argument being proposed. One's objection then is not the judge's ability of justice, but perhaps the binary system. However, that distinction is not clearly made. Binary system, if true, is reality, and our judgment should be based around that reality, and not based on some hypothetical prism system that does not exist in the sad domain. So when Godless Cranium says this,
what will the verdict be in your court case? And that's when you're about to hear, objection, Your Honor. I'm not as bad as other people.
I'll take your word for it that you hear this objection often, but as far as objections go, it's not a horrible one. You believe that this God punishes everyone who doesn't believe in it. It doesn't matter whether the person tried to live an ethical life or not. Your argument is that every human being has done something wrong, or something against your God's laws. I've seen you ask people whether they had dishonored their parents, for example, and then use their admission of guilt to drive home the idea that they deserve everlasting torment because of that. What a ridiculous argument. While I'd agree that most, if not all of us, have done things we're not proud of and wish we could take back, none of them would warrant unending torture, let alone the crime of treating your parents disrespectfully.
he is plain wrong. He starts with getting the objection right, but then makes it about whether the crimes committed deserve eternal punishment. But the objection is not about that in the least. It is not talking about punishments, it is talking about whether small crimes are not crimes. The statement of objection is, I am not as bad as other people. An implication is that I should not be punished. To undercut the objection while agreeing with the premise that people are not equally good or bad, one needs to argue whether some people should be forgiven because they aren't that bad. What needs to be the benchmark? Obviously, all of us but one may find a person who is worse than us, and then we can put him in the shredder and save maximum amount of people. But is that the most just way? The objection of eternal punishment for finite crime or disproportionate punishment is a separate objection. As Todd puts it, a small thief is still a thief. Cranium raises further objection. Do we owe an apology to God or to the victim? Cranium says,
in fact, most parents would hate this being for torturing their child on their behalf. If a child disrespects their parent, it's not God that's owed an apology, it's the parents. Honestly, it just blows my mind how stupid and harmful the hell doctrine is.
well, let's see what JFG has to say about it.
In the flow, please do bring that up. Okay, and then, so when you're talking about killing, you don't want to be killed. You said, yeah, generally speaking, you don't want to be killed. Yeah. So what is it about the animal that makes it okay to kill the animal? Because when you're saying it's okay to kill you, or it's not okay to kill you, but it is okay to kill the animal, what's implicit there is that there is something different about the animal, that there is some difference between you and the animal that justifies killing the animal. So I'm just wondering, what is that difference that makes it okay to kill the animal? And to test for consistency, if the difference were applied to you, is it now okay to kill JF? So just to be really clear, to give like an example, if you were to say, well, the difference is that the chicken is of lower intelligence. If I were to then say, okay, well, if you were to lose a bunch of your intelligence, is it now okay to kill you? Well, you'd probably say no. So intelligence per se can't be the thing that justifies murder. If you were to say, oh, the chicken, that's just a different species. Well, if an alien told you you're of a different species, would you accept being murdered for that reason? So just the question is, what is it about the chicken that makes it okay to kill the chicken?
So, as a moral nihilist, I agree with you on a part of this, which is our limitation of the concept of murder to human, and our idea that murdering other things is not murder, is an arbitrary line of divide. It is not naturally justified, and in fact, to a certain extent, it's not philosophically justified. The way I see it, laws of murder exist in human populations because they are part of a social contract that you've entered with people who had the potential to kill you back eventually, or their family could kill you if you had killed them. And so there's a reason to enter in that social contract with certain humans, with humans, and in fact certain humans, because it's true that we do go outside of our countries to kill people sometimes, and so we're not completely against murder technically, but there is a reason why you would engage in a kind of contract with the people around you, those people who could eventually reciprocate your violence toward them and reply. But there's a reason why you wouldn't adhere to that social contact with every living being that exists.
Sargon and his friends.
Economic policies, I don't disagree with them much, but like
when it comes to principles, would it be easier to sum them up as human rights?
I don't like the language of human rights.
Yeah.
What about the American version of God-given rights, like inalienable rights?
I really don't like that.
Okay, is there a human right you disagree with in particular?
I mean, in terms of human rights, I agree, but framing it in terms of, you know, you have this right because you're born, you know, it's not really clear where they come from, how...
Yeah, mine's just, where are you born? Where are you born? Because not everyone has the exact same rights.
No, but like, you look at the UN and the human rights, you copy-paste them. That's my idea, because all of them seem to be really good because the countries that applied them are livable countries and countries where people want to go to. And countries that don't have them are countries where people run away from.
The problem is with the UN, especially with human rights, is a lot of it sometimes used as a cudgel for policy. Like,
yeah, they've been co-opted, I agree. But the spirit of them, the initial ones that were written down.
Like the thing is that the UN has been arguing for things, stupid things like, you know, tampons are a human right.
Like, ignore that, okay? I'm talking about
there are some serious issues there. Because,
right of freedom of speech, right to own property, right for freedom of travel, to travel away from your country, not to another country.
Problem is, those are lofty principles rather than kind of more concrete things.
That I'm talking about, though.
I can here. Let me, if you want to go through the list of human rights from AHR library, then I could. It's in the Skype. I posted in the Skype chat. And there's 30 that they've listed there, and Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
It seems to me, though, that a human right is a consequence of a principle rather than a principle itself.
Yeah, I agree.
It comes from it, yeah. And from the United Nations site, I'll post that. Then,
on the right to equality, I mean, I guess I'll have to...
Yeah, I really don't like this. I don't like the concept of, like, quote-unquote human rights, because our rights are determined by our fucking nation status, all right? That's how it's determined.
Yeah, and different people can determine what's a human right.
As far as I'm concerned, human rights are what we give ourselves. So we determine what we want to be a human right.
You serious?
No one deserves anything on a pure naturalistic basis, such as a pure social construct, and hence no one owes apology to anyone except if he sees it in his own interest. To see a more honest response, I recommend the whole talk between JFG and a vegan, Isaac, to know why the atheist opposition does not cut the ice. Cranium says,
I'm not a big serial killer, by the way. 8 people, that's nothing. There's a lot of other guys you can go see. In other words, if you think I'm a bad murderer, there are a lot of other serial killers who are worse than me. And that is precisely what the person who says, objection, Your Honor, I'm not as bad as my little brother.
No, it's not. Not unless you're talking about someone who killed 8 people. There is a world of difference between, say, lying to someone and killing them.
And yes, there is, and Todd would agree. But the question is, what immorality should be accepted in heaven, and what not, and why? Cranium shows the mismatch when he says,
your actions, the things that you have done or failed to do, you will never see an earthly court case where the accused criminal totes in worse criminals and says, look, Your Honor, yeah, sure, fine, but look, it's O.J. Simpson. Fine, I beat my wife, but O.J. Simpson!
Again, beating your spouse is the same as allegedly killing someone or actually killing someone. You know what? Let's just throw out the OJ part and simplify it by making it a hypothetical person who repeatedly beat and then killed their wife. Now, do you think someone who murders their spouse is going to receive the same amount of time behind bars as someone who beats their spouse? Do either deserve torture? What would that say about us as a society if we decided to start brutally torturing prisoners? Would you consider such a society an all-good society? And yes, we have lawyers. Those lawyers will gladly point out to judges that there are precedents in place that were set by previous court cases. The justice system also distinguishes between crimes and has minimum and maximum sentences built into the system. Your God, on the other hand, has a less nuanced approach to justice than our human-made justice systems. It sees every transgression as equal, which means everything deserves the same punishment.
so should we accept the people who beat their wife regularly into heaven? If the answer is no, then well, you have just agreed that the person be put in hell, because these are the only available choices. Heaven is not a place to still have political or moral discussions about what is wrong, still mull whether abortion was right all along, or whether an extra steak was justified. For if it is, and it is for eternity, then there is no answer ever possible and no discussion that can ever be ended in success in this regard. Why won't God allow only these choices? Why not just have a Western system of justice wherein you punish someone for a finite amount of time and then release him? But release him to where? If heaven? Would it not be bizarre that everybody gets to enjoy an infinite amount of time in heaven, and so morals don't matter, as the finite punishment that one receives is infinitesimal compared to the joys that are guaranteed? A pragmatic system of morals will always fail to deliver a true picture of any sort of moral reality. If there is at all separation possible between the good and the bad, then that entails the Abrahamic conception of heaven and hell. And if no such separation is at all possible, then there is no morality to begin with, just strengths, weaknesses, and a normal human nature. As Neil Gaiman says, it may help to understand human affairs to be clear that most of the great triumphs and tragedies of history are caused not by people being fundamentally good or fundamentally bad, but by people being fundamentally people. Hashtag born this way.
Imagine a man who embezzled $2 million saying to a judge, Your Honor, I know I stole a couple million, but Bernie Madoff made off with $65 billion. Now, imagine if the judge said, I never thought of that. You're free to go. If you think that's ridiculous, you're right. It is ridiculous, my friend.